In 3 years of being out here on YouTube, I have yet to do a review on BPS knives. Well, that's going to change today because we're going to be taking a look at the BPS Raven. Stick around. For the most part, I've heard nothing but good things about BPS knives. I've watched a few reviews out here on YouTube. They reached out to me recently and gave me the opportunity to dig through their selection and see some blades I might want to create content around, and I chose two. I wanted to review one of their tactical style blades as well as one of their bushcraft blades. We're going to be looking at the tactical blade in this video, and that is the Raven. Now, for those who don't know, BPS has been around since about 2017. I think that's what I read. They're a family-run organization out of the Ukraine, and that is where their knives are made. Now, right off the bat, this is rather unique because it's thinner than a lot of tactical knives out there on the market, but it is so sharp, and it is going to be a slicing machine. Hair shaving sharp, no problem at all. It's a shame that I got in the shower and shaved my head this morning, because I might just shave this right now for you. Now, I hope you know I'm joking. I'm not planning on ever shaving my head with a knife. Now, this is a 5CR14 MOV steel, full tang. It's got these basic plastic scales, and it's not a thick handle, easy to engulf the handle. 9.8 inches in length with a 5.1 inch blade. The handle here is 4.5 inches. It's got these finger grooves, and this blade, as I mentioned, is not thick. This is 2.5 millimeters thick. When I talk about Mora knives, people will bring up BPS knives, and that's because, you know, of the similar nature and design of these blades. They are very slice focused. Now, this is not so much a bushcraft blade, but you could absolutely get into a lot of bushcraft with this. I wouldn't advocate for a lot of heavy beating on the back of the blade. A lot of times you see a lot of bushcraft blades that are just a lot like a pry bar in a sense. They're just one of those types of blades that you can just beat the crap out of because the spine is so thick, and a lot of times people will do splitting and heavy things like that, prying things open. This is more of a delicate slicer from my point of view. But this is marketed as being very tough. But before we get into too many more specifications, I want to take a look at the sheath, and here it is, and it locks in there so tight, almost too tight. I mean, you can't even do a thumb release with this. You have to yank this blade out. Now, when it's on your side, you're gonna have to give it a strong yank. You could also switch this to do scout carry, but it is in there very tight. For those of you who want a really, really, really tight sheath, you got it right here. Now, this one is marketed as a tactical knife. As you can see, the sheath is more of a tactical style sheath. A lot of their bushcraft blades are like leather sheaths that you can just drop the knife down into that casually hang off your side. This is more of a tactical blade, which means it's designed for the field, designed for a lot of things, everything from fighting to prying things open to day-to-day utilities, just being able to be kind of an all-purpose type of knife out in the field, whatever that field may be. Now, as far as the spine is concerned, it's a sharp spine for striking ferro rods. You have the jimping here, so you know you can strike a ferro rod. A lot of their knives come with a ferro rod. This one does not, but it could be used to strike one. It's going to be able to slice and pierce, very effective. As far as the handle and combatives, you know, you've got the finger grooves, and you've got good hand protection for your hand this way, even with jimping if you wanted to use this grip. But it's also got a good, you know, thumb position for reverse ice pick. You've also got this extra tang here on the end for striking, different things like that. So it is built very well as far as like being able to protect the hand. It's got good reach, and it's going to be a dangerous blade if it touches you because it's very, very, very sharp. It's going to pierce through things very easily. These plastic scales don't feel like they're as grippy as something like G10, but I don't get the impression that this is very slick. Based on the way this handle is constructed, I feel like you'll have a good solid grip, even if your hands do get wet. If you carry this in scout, it does fit across the small of the back pretty nicely. Now, as I've mentioned in a lot of past knife reviews, I don't always do a tip test, but I'm going to do a tip test in this one because from what I gather, so many guys who carry knives out in the field, as far as soldiers, active duty, they will a lot of times use their knives as a pry bar. I hear that all the time. So let's do a little tip testing. Looking good. I'm not gonna get too crazy with it, but I do want to do a little bit. All right. Little bit of bending there on the end. Not a lot, but a little bit. Now, again, I'm not saying you're going to use a knife like this and do a lot of tip torture with it out in the field, but you may need to pry something open in the heat of the moment. And I just wanted to see what you're working with, but I think it's pretty tough for the most part. It's just slightly bent there, not hardly at all, just on the very, very end of it. So you should be fine if you have to dig into something. They can get right into these kinds of tasks. Carving, you see how it's just digging in. So if you're carving something, a blade like this is going to serve you very well. Feels nice and solid in the hand. Let's throw it. So I stabbed those wooden targets really hard because I wanted you to see how well reinforced the handle was if, God forbid, in a combative situation, you stabbed into something hard. And that applies to working out in the field as well. You know, stabbing through a hard object, you know, doing whatever you got to do. It does have good reinforcement for the hand, a very comfortable handle. As far as this sheath is concerned, if you were ever in a combative situation and you ever had to deploy your blade, just make sure you deploy it with some force because it's in there. With the handle being constructed like it is on this one, I'm not so worried about thumb brace. And I'll show you something that I like. With this one here, when I draw it in this position, my blade is inward. I like that in case I have to go here and here. I do like that feature. And again, even when you hold it this way, your hand grabs that handle right there. Now you can still get a little thumb brace here, but your hand grabs here, so you're nice and secure. As far as sharpening, you have this little groove right here. Shouldn't be difficult to sharpen, but this little groove makes it easy to get a good starting point. There are also sharpeners out in the field, kind of like the Sharpen Spark that I reviewed, where you can just lightly brush the blade. Just brush it a few times and it's back to having a razor's edge again, and that's really good for out in the field especially. Now, another feature that I really haven't talked about is the weight itself. This is 5.4 ounces. It's a whole lot of blade that can do a lot of damage, and it's light, which means you can be super fast with this. I believe the BPS Raven's a very sharp piece of gear with a very specific design for those looking for something light, sharp, and fast. I believe it's tough enough for any reasonable task, and I really do like the construction of the handle there. But what do you think about the Raven? Do you have this knife? What do you think of BPS knives in general? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any BPS knives that you use that you think are amazing, drop those in the comments for me. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Take care.